Ahoy, and welcome back to Titanic Talkline. I am Alexia, and I'm excited to have Hubert Mullins on this week. I unfortunately did not manage to get your book did not arrive in time for this interview, which is irritating. So I am actually really excited for you to tell me about both your book and sort of your story. So hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, I wrote a book last year called Blood and Salt. It's a horror take on Titanic. It's my 16th book, actually. I've since published number 17. So this is the one I don't really get to talk about a whole lot anymore. So I was really excited to be here to get to talk about it.
I'm
Um,
excited.
yeah. As far as my story goes, I've been writing professionally for almost 20 years. It all started with a broken back. Actually, had a work accident that put me out for about 6 months, couldn't walk or do any of that. So I started writing to just keep my mind from going nuts.
Completely
And
understand.
that's kind of how the whole thing started. And then it kind of developed from writing fantasy to dark fantasy to now horror.
Hmm.
And my last 5 or 6 books, I guess, would be mostly horror.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like horror. And I know that there's going to be people out there who are not, sort of a fan of horror
right.
concept, but I'm personally far more liberal. I love different forms of expression because I think that it starts getting a little dicey when you start saying only this form of expression or only that form of
Yeah.
expression is allowed.
Well, I went into it with the deepest respect for the source material.
Hmm.
Um, as far as like the supernatural element, the stuff that I put in there,
Hmm.
I didn't change anybody's story.
Right.
Nobody who if we have an account of a person, their body being found, if we have an account of a person who did a certain thing in the book, they do that in my book too. Very
Right.
little of the actual events have changed. I just work my story around it.
I think that that's neat. And I think that, in my opinion, that shows that it's not just, oh, I'm churning out a book. It's that you have interest in the actual historical source. What
Yeah, I
is,
didn't want to. Yeah, I
Mhm.
didn't want to go into it with just okay. This is just going to be a popcorn book, just endless violence and things like that. I just didn't want to. I didn't want it to be like that.
Mhm. That, I think that's fair. I mean, again, not to say that, again, nothing wrong with a popcorn book.
Right, right.
I love a fun little popcorn novel. That's
Yeah,
that's fun for me. But
yeah,
especially when it's something that has to do like with Titanic or anything that's sort of, I don't know, like historical or historical fiction,
yeah.
there is a need, in my opinion, and this is why I don't personally want to do any sort of historical fiction. Um, when I do writing, I like to do fantasy because I can make it all up. When you do historical fiction, you do need to be very sure that you're aware of the right things. And like when you were writing this particular, why am I having such a hard time with this? When you were writing this particular book, excuse me, when did you initially decide like I'm going to make it a Titanic book, and like what did you start doing to to start preparing to write a Titanic book?
So my favorite part of the whole writing process is the research.
Hmm.
I've always been led by the research. The book that I did right before Titanic is called Under Bethel, and it's about giant spiders.
Oh God.
I hate spiders. Every night I would write that book, I would have to go and take a shower. I mean, it was horrible.
Oh,
The research for that was terrible. And after I wrote that book, I said, you know what? The next book I write, I'm going to enjoy what I research.
that
And
yeah, that's deserved.
yeah, yeah. And then I thought, okay, well, I've always just been such a huge fan of Titanic, like so many other people. We just were
Right.
drawn to this ship. And I thought, well, how can I put my twist on that
Hmm.
hasn't really been done? And I researched Titanic and horror because there's Titanic and zombies, there's Titanic and there's all these different things. And I said, well,
Right.
let's. I was reading Dracula. I do a read through of Dracula every year, and I was rereading Dracula, and I thought this would probably be pretty cool, because we have the whole, now we see that new movie, that The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is, I think,
Right.
like chapter 7 of Dracula.
Oh,
Um,
I have no idea.
yeah, yeah, and I thought, well, we have that, so why can't we combine these two things? Why can't we have like a different vampire origin story? Which I don't use Dracula. I have my own. It's sort of based on an Irish legend. Ireland had their own kind of Dracula, so it's kind of based on that.
Hmm.
And I went from there. I started to do the research. I go full in when I do research. I got the deck plans. I blew the deck plans up, laminated them, and stapled them together, and made these 8 foot long deck plans and stretched them all across my floor. And since I laminated them, I could use my highlighter, and I could plot people's movements and things like that. So that's where the book started. It stemmed solely from the research.
Okay. I think that that's cool. And you mentioned that so many people have had an interest in Titanic, and that's super true. So, what is outside of this book, if you do have, a story, what is your Titanic story?
Uh, I can remember in school. Um, I'm going to date myself here, but
Eh,
my senior year was when the movie came out, when Titanic came out, and
okay.
I had a teacher who embedded a lot of that in her lesson plans, and I just remember enjoying the Titanic facts and being
Right.
able to recall things like, the size of the engines and the number of passengers, how much food they had on board, just things like that was like really interesting to me. And I think that's where my love of Titanic started.
Hmm. It's important to know that sometimes it's someone else's enthusiasm for something that gets you involved. I got involved, or not involved, I got interested in writing when I was in middle school because I had
Mm-hmm.
an English teacher that was particularly engaged in and good at her job.
Yeah.
So going back to this book in particular, for people like me who haven't unfortunately had a chance to get their hands on a copy of it yet, what is it about? You don't have to spoil it if you don't want to, but for people who aren't familiar.
Well, we follow a passenger, a third class passenger named Fiona Lynch, and we
Hmm.
follow a doctor named Benjamin York. And it's the story of the two of them, and it's mostly separate. We just see what they're each dealing with aboard this ship, but
Hmm.
at the same time, we have something in our cargo hold that a pair of robbers who want to take it and then jump ship, they don't know what they're getting into, so they
No.
open up this mysterious box, and that's when all hell breaks loose. And one of the people who is robbing, who's in the cargo hold, is John Coffey, who actually jumped ship in Queenstown.
Hmm.
um, so I actually worked in the reason why he abandoned Titanic.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've put like all the things that we know about Titanic. We know things like the Marconi machine
Hmm.
that malfunctioned.
Hmm.
That's what has been said, but I have a reason for that. So all of these little things that happen in real life on the ship, I've kind of put my own little twist on them, why they happen.
What are, besides the Marconi machine, what are some of your favorite like Titanic details that you wanted to be sure that you put in your book, regardless of the subject matter? Like,
This one's kind of a silly one, but you have a lot of people who have the bunker fire theory.
right.
And if you look at the deck plans, if you look at the side view and then you look at the top view of where the bunkers of coal are, they're not anywhere near each other. So I don't really know how that theory got off the ground, because it all stemmed from this one photo where you see this dark spot on Titanic, and you think, well, that's a weakened part in the hull. So I wanted to address that in kind of my own way, and that's kind of where our story starts. That's where we meet some of our characters who were down in the bunker, who were down in the boiler room. So I wanted to kind of address that theory and put a little truth to it.
How did you end up what did you end up choosing to do?
I just I wanted it to be made known that this wasn't a contributing factor to the iceberg.
Mm.
I didn't, and that's another thing that I did in this. I didn't make the vampires directly related to the iceberg. I still wanted that to be man's fault. I still wanted that to be a combination of White Star Line policies and things like that for why this happened. I didn't want people to get off easy in this and let's the vampires crashed the ship. I didn't want it to be like that. Yeah.
Why vampires?
Oh, I've just always liked vampires. My first three books are vampire. They're dark fantasy, so it's kind of like more like Lord of the Rings than I guess Anne Rice. So I've always liked vampires, but this gave me an opportunity to write vampires in a different way. My vampires are kind of they all stem from this one vampire they call the King, and the King has these really long teeth, and when he bites somebody, he actually breaks one of them off that stays in their neck, and all these little tiny things grow into the person's body, and that's kind of what controls them.
Huh.
So mine are a little different.
Does his tooth grow back, or is this a finite
Yes.
thing?
No, his tooth grows back. That was kind of something I put in there as a why are we overrun with vampires? So
Sure.
this way they can keep their numbers small. He only has 8. He has 8 gigantic teeth. He can do 8 a night.
Wow. So it's like
So
overnight.
yeah. Yeah, they well actually, now I think about it, 'cause remember I'm a year from this book. So actually it's every 2 or 3 nights because they grow back slowly. And then I think
Sure.
maybe on the 3rd night he can do it again.
So I one of sort of unrelated to Titanic or anything, but one of my favorite things is watching people review the Twilight movies and books.
Yeah.
Um, Part of it is because it's funny, but also part of it is because people really, really hate or really, really love that vampire
Uh-huh.
lore. And it is a little bit ridiculous. There are parts of it that are absolutely
Right.
wild, but I do think one thing that I wanted to give tiny amounts of credit to that, and even with, other methods that people think are a little silly, is that when you're trying to do something a little bit new on a really old trope or a twist on something that's been publicly done in a particular way for a long time,
Right.
it's really difficult to make something unique that still also ties in enough with what everyone knows to be quote unquote
Right.
true.
That's a tough balance to draw. Yeah.
Hmm. So why did you choose to do like something, it would be way easier to just be like, oh, it's a Dracula style vampire or it's an Anne Rice style vampire or whatever.
It's I always like to put my own spin on things. That's part of the fun. I like to take something that exists and put my spin on it. I wrote a book called Better Left Buried, which is about pirates and ghosts. So we have the pirate queen Anne Bonny. We never know what happened with her. So I took that and ran with it. So I wrote my own story about what happened to her.
Mhm.
Then I wrote Ghost Train of Treblinka, which is about a Holocaust train that goes missing and shows back up in modern day Poland. So I take these things that have actually happened and then I kind of write my story in there. And that's what I like to do. I like to take something that is recognizable and just kind of make it my own.
Mhm.
Because vampire, say what you will about Twilight, those kind of aren't vampires. If you take every single defining factor away from it, it's not that thing anymore. They're barely vampires
That's fair.
in my opinion. But I don't want to bash Twilight. I will say this. I will say one thing I really love about Twilight, and you can also say this about the 50 Shades books.
Sure.
Those two franchises made readers into people who were not readers.
That's true.
Yeah. So got to give it to them for that.
That's also important to know. I know that there's some people out there, even within the Titanic community, that really don't like to give a lot of credit, at least anymore, to the Cameron film. I think because
Right.
in many people's minds, it's too mainstream. Oh, I liked it
Yeah.
before it was cool, and I'm making fun of it slightly, but there is that sort of air of sometimes superiority that shows up with certain things. And I wonder, is that something that you ever encounter in your writing where you tell people that you do a particular genre and people sort of act as though, I
It's
don't know.
sacred.
Yeah, something, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
why are you trying
I've
your hand at this?
Right. I think I've gotten more negative comments and messages about this book than any other book I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
because there's Titanic purists out there,
This is
and
true.
they treat, I'm a part of a few communities that treat Titanic the way a lot of people treat 9/11. And
Yes.
they think any type of fiction whatsoever that you write about Titanic is just sacrilegious. Like you should just stay away from it. So I've gotten a lot of negative messages from those communities.
Right. That that's something that I've talked about a little bit on this show too, and that I think that those people probably don't like me very much either. Well, I have a very diverse group of people on my show, and I personally like it that way. I have
Yeah,
some people who are historians and very deeply stewed in simply the historical accuracy. And I have some people who make parody toys and are burlesque artists, all kinds of
yeah.
different folks involved. And I think that those voices are equally valid.
Oh yeah,
So,
we can all appreciate this in our own way.
and that's what I find like super frustrating about that reception is sort of like to hear that people like you and Alex Bonson, who is the toy maker, would get hate and essentially
Yeah,
that it's frustrating to learn because again it's essentially
yeah,
declaring that certain art is illegitimate.
right. Yeah, I run Facebook ads for this book, and
Hmm.
I daily have to go and delete comments that are just like, how could you, leave Titanic alone? And now it's kind of resurfaced with this whole sub story, that just
Mm,
happened. So
yeah.
yeah, it's getting the wrong kind of traction right now.
What it not that I want to spend a lot of time dwelling on it, but what is the when people come to you or post these comments, what is their criticism? Is it sort of generalized anger where it's how dare you do this? Or do you think that in their minds you can see where they maybe have a point or not at all?
I mean, I always go back to this picture. Somebody shared it to me when this book first came out, and it was one of those inflatable
Mm,
water slides,
yes.
and it was Titanic. It was Titanic on its side, and kids, were sliding down it in the water,
Yep.
and somebody said, "How long does the tragedy have to go on before it can be turned into a slip and slide?" And
Right.
I said, in another 100 years, are we going to have the trade towers, sliding down those, So, like, what's the shelf life on something we can't use for art?
I also think there's hmm, I think that the intention of the art becomes part of the argument as well. And that's not to say that intention can excuse things,
Yeah.
but
Well, most of the people who, I guess, who see the ads come up, they just see
mm,
one thing, like, oh, this is a guy trying to capitalize on this tragedy. And, I guess in a small way, I am, because I'm a writer. It's my profession. But,
mhm.
like I told you at the beginning of this, I went into this with the deepest respect for the source material. And I even put a disclaimer at the end, because even in my book, Bruce Ismay turns out to be kind of a bad guy.
Mhm.
He's mean spirited. I even put it at the end that this is purely fictional. This is, from what I've read, we have a kind of a negative view of him. That's not true. everybody says that it's all because he was one of the people who was really rich and he survived when so many people did not.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what it stems from. But I had to put that disclaimer in there. And I actually talked to Bruce Ismay's, I think it's his great grandson, who actually
Cliff.
wrote a book about him. Yeah, yeah. He and I had a conversation, and he read the book, and I think he approved.
Mhm.
So
I
glad
like
about that.
Cliff Ismay is he's a nice guy.
Yeah,
Um I sorry, not to go back to the same question, but sort of when people do come with those criticism, what's something that you wish that they would understand before maybe misinterpreting it? Like, do you think that they're just upset because, as you said, they see an ad and they get upset about it, or are these people that have quote unquote legitimate criticism where they're I don't know, Titanic experts or enthusiasts to come in with a specific criticism?
I think if you're going to have that kind of criticism, at least read it first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can really form your opinion just based on a 1080 by 1080 ad on Facebook.
I guess I'm asking what kind of criticism is it? Is it just people who are mad about the book in general, or is it people who have an understanding of Titanic?
It's never the people who have an understanding of Titanic. It's
Okay,
always people who are just critical of the subject. I just that
gotcha.
this is what I chose to write about.
Gotcha.
The
Yeah,
people
sorry.
who the people who know about Titanic, they're usually pretty receptive to it. They actually,
Hmm.
they usually think it's pretty good, except when I go into the sites that are run by the purists. In the beginning, I thought, well, this is going to be a fantastic place for me to market my book. No, I got ran out of those places fast.
There
So
is a faction of people in the sort of Titanic historical enthusiast group that are they're very I don't even know if they really like Titanic fiction at all, honestly. And
right,
that's not, I, I do. But if that's your thing and you just don't like it, that's fine. There's certain things that I don't like in my life, to be honest with you, and I just
right.
avoid them. But
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I think this book is just so different than other Titanic books because I'll see them like in book groups, and they'll
Mhm.
say, we're looking for something Titanic themed, and it's always something about a certain passenger or something about the White Star Line, and then I'll suggest, hey, it's October. How about we read a horror book on Titanic? And it's like it comes out of left field, and people are just like, oh, nah, I don't think so.
Do you think part of that might just be because the Venn diagram of people who are into horror and the Venn diagram of people who are into Titanic don't have a very big
Yes,
overlap? Okay.
that's exactly what it is because when I do my Facebook ads, my market is 45-year female and up.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of my
That's
other friend who has a Titanic podcast who is not a horror movie fan.
uh
Not to throw her under the bus, but I'm just thinking in general, it's like, wait, a lot of people I know who like Titanic are like not horror movie people.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's a unique union, I guess.
Speaking of unique, this is going to sound like it came out of left field, but did you watch the shows on Netflix, Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor?
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people were a little more critical of Bly Manor than of Hill House, but I really like it. And the reason that I really like it is because it has a very gothic romantic feeling to it
Right.
that
Yeah.
is a traditional of horror.
Yeah. And I think that's part of its success.
And I know that there were a lot of people who were really disappointed in it because they were expecting something much more traditional.
See, we don't I'm pretty traditional when it comes to things.
Sure.
And I I thought those were done really well. And I'll give you another example, and this is kind of out of left field, but one of my favorite books is The Great Gatsby. When I heard that they were remaking Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio with music by Jay-Z, I thought, what kind of train wreck is this going to be? But you know what? It worked so well.
Hmm.
I mean, the music just showed like the decadence of the era, and Leonardo DiCaprio was great. So I think sometimes you can break with tradition and still have something pretty good.
And I feel as though that's, excuse me, important If anything, I believe that people having a majority of people having some time during the pandemic to actually think about the things that they like and things that they would want to do has given way to a lot more new and unique forms of art and expression. Like there's
Yeah,
people who do digital art for Titanic. There's people who make little figurines for Titanic and they hand make replica life vest and 3D print miniature davits. It's the spectrum
right.
of creativity is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, and the people who are into Titanic, I mean, it's just such a very wide spectrum. I mean, it's very
Mm-hmm.
broad because I have people who buy my books and they tell me this is the first book I've read in years, and they just because of the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that I think that's pretty cool.
And I know that there's, other people that I very much like that sometimes don't get the world's kindest receptions just because of the things that they do.
Yeah.
One of them being Titanic fan 97, who good friend of the show, big friend of the show. He has the world's largest collection of Titanic on VHS.
Oh, I've seen him on
Uh-huh.
TikTok. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. He's great. JD, as we call him, he and Jack Dawson, we love him. And I got to meet him in person. He'd been on my show before, and I got to meet him in person at the Titanic convention this year in Las Vegas. And it was one of the
Oh,
most disappointing things to learn that some people were genuinely mean to him while he was there. And truthfully,
wow.
walking around with a like 2/3 life size Jack Dawson is truthfully one of the most harmless hobbies I could possibly think of. But he was saying that, by the way, I think this is a crime, honestly. While they were getting money out of the ATM, people were like filming them to make fun of them. You can't film people while they're at an
Yeah.
ATM, guys. That's against the law. Don't do that, even if you want to make fun of them. But all that to
Wow.
say is just it's very upsetting to me that people like he and like you and others that I've encountered get such a nasty reception just for doing what they like. Okay, so what you don't personally want 2000 copies of Titanic on VHS. No one is making you take
Right.
them. Like
Exactly.
you don't need to be mad about it. You don't have to carry around a
Exactly.
giant dummy. That seems like a massive hassle to me. I'm not gonna flip and do it, and they're not mad at me for not.
When I get these negative comments on my ads, I always think, you can just scroll by.
Yeah.
You're able to just keep scrolling.
Oh, knocked my headphones off. I'm so irritated. Uh, well, I mean, I say this a lot on my show. My show relies on a variety of people coming to talk to me. It's not to say you can't have repeat guests. I have several friends of the show that come several times, but
Yeah.
it it would be hypocritical of me to suddenly start saying that this, that, or the other thing is an illegitimate form of art because I'm sure there's people out there who think that my podcast is, I don't know, disrespectful or or whatever the case may be. And that's just again, I think it becomes dicey when you start saying that so and so's content isn't good or it's bad or it's respectful or it's
Right.
not.
Hey, we're all trying to be artists. We're all trying to do what makes us happy. And I think this probably brings a lot of people joy. So, hey, keep doing it.
I hope that it also brings people who are more open-minded new things to discover. Like, I'm
Yeah.
hoping that maybe some people who are not as interested in nonfiction, I have a lot of nonfiction authors on my show. I'm hoping that people who are not nonfiction interested are going to be interested. A friend of mine is actually who tagged me in one of your ads. She was like, we need to
Oh,
read this book. So, it
oh,
just
that's
goes to
cool.
show that there are people that actually think that it's neat. And I was like, absolutely on board for this, McKenna. When do we start?
I'm so glad you messaged me because I don't reach out to a whole lot of people. I don't know why.
You should.
I'm quiet and
Uh,
reserved and yeah.
I will say that despite this very small portion of people who can be a little bit snooty, for the most part, the Titanic community is pretty welcoming.
Yeah.
There
Yeah, and
are
I want to
some.
and I do want to point that out. Like the things I was saying about the purists and all that, that is a very small minority. Most
It is.
people have nothing but good things to say about
Hmm.
Titanic. They have nothing but good things to say about this book. So yeah, I've had like overwhelmingly positive support.
Good. And, I
Yeah.
will also say that those same people are also the ones that are negative to people who make Titanic cookbooks. There are people who are also mad at people who make like Titanic romance novels. I don't want to make it, I want to make it abundantly clear that once again, this is an extremely small percentage of people. And two, they seem to there's a very small portion of people that believe that sort of any expression of fictional relativity towards historical events is disrespectful. And I'm pretty sure there's people that think the same thing about like a ton of historical events, like the
Right.
Hindenburg or what have you.
Right. I mean, you can have these retellings, like look at remember the books like the Pride and Prejudice and what was it,
Mm-hmm.
Sea Monsters, or you
Right.
had these like really outrageous retellings of classics. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm huge into classics. That was my thing in college. Like I'm a literature major, so I can almost consider myself a purist when it comes to that stuff. But I still think those kind of books are fun,
Mm-hmm.
and they are just they're a love letter to the source material.
Right. I think isn't it 10 Things I Hate About You is a romantic comedy retelling of The Taming of the Shrew?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
that
then do
kind
you
of
remember
thing.
you remember the old Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo
Yes.
and Claire Danes? I thought that was really cool. We watched that in school, and that story would never reach people
Hmm.
without that method of telling. I think we should do other classics that way,
I actually
which
happen to
I
agree.
which I guess we are doing. Isn't there a new Follow the House of the Usher on Netflix?
I have no
I
idea,
think,
but
yeah, I think they just did a retelling of that. So
they probably did. Netflix is always churning something out. That like I turn my back for 5 minutes and they've put out 8 miniseries.
yeah, like I want to send them a letter and say, hey, will you turn this into a movie? And they probably would. They do everything else.
I really want to see, and I think I've talked about it on the show before. Not to say that I'm tired of Titanic retellings. I'm not. But I really want to see a mini series about the voyage, the interrupted voyage of the Carpathia.
That would be cool.
Yeah, like starting it off kind of Downton Abbey style, following, I don't know, some rich
Yeah,
lady as she gets ready to sail in the Carpathia. She doesn't actually want to go. She's supposed to marry somebody in England. I'm writing this as I go along. She's on the ship, and you're following it thinking it's just, those of us who know Titanic probably know. But you're following it along as this like
yeah.
slice of life drama for these people. Then all of a sudden it's a literal life-changing rescue for people you've never met.
I think this is something you need to write.
Oh, and then she meets a man who manages to survive and they fall in love. See? Like Netflix, call me. Um,
I would
but
watch that.
see, but I also think that it's a new way to tell that story. And also, the Carpathia is an important part. And it's again a new way to tell a portion of the Titanic story instead of trying to do quote unquote the same thing again.
Yeah. Well, even that's good, but I still think that we are at a point now where so much time has passed since James Cameron's that we can have another Titanic story.
I
We
I think if they did, it would need to be a mini series, like I suggested, maybe not a movie. And
Yeah.
I want to explain why, because I was also an English major. I was a creative writing
Oh.
um, concentration too. I feel as though because of the necessity of CG, the
Mhm.
pacing for a Titanic movie now would be too much with just the way that blockbuster movies go. But with a
Yeah,
miniseries of maybe 8 to 10 episodes, you could really dig into the characters,
that's
get to
true.
know them. This is just me. Somebody come tell me I'm wrong if they think I'm wrong.
No, I get it. We rely too much on CGI now. We're past the days of building an actual side of Titanic and putting it in
Hmm.
water. Yeah, we're not. I don't think we're going to do that anymore. Sadly.
It is disappointing. I'd look at it's not to say that CG can't look good, but I watch Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies where they do
Uh
a
huh.
really good combination of live and CG,
Yeah.
and it's utilized so well. But you have enough, and the Cameron's Titanic film, you have enough real stuff
Hmm.
to make it believable. There's enough
Yeah,
interaction with things in real life. Like they pick up a real can of soda, they put a real can of soda on a real table, but then the
right.
window they walk by is green screen. It's enough to
Yeah,
make you think you're
yeah,
there.
yeah. They could do that. I think a series would be pretty nice.
There's a behind the scenes clip from the live action Little Mermaid that makes me laugh every time I see it. The real scene is Halle Berry sitting on a giant sea turtle and kind of riding it for a second, like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, how fun. And then behind the scenes, it just shows Halle
And
Berry
just
smiling, sitting on this person's back as he kind of like fake army crawl shuffles on the ground. And it's this sort of thing where I'm like,
kind of like the wolves in Twilight. Yeah,
oh yeah, I love that thing of her
yeah,
petting Taylor
yeah,
Lautner on the head. That is tremendous. Or of
yeah.
Ahmed Best running around set with Jar Jar's head taped to the top of his head.
Yes,
Some of the footage of these things is just phenomenal. Like that is
yeah.
hysterical.
Look up the one of Henry Cavill as Superman.
Okay, let me
Him,
Google this right
he's
now.
in a scene where he's talking, and then he does his like up and away where he just in CGI they like make almost like an earthquake when he shoots up into the sky, but it's him just lifting on his tiptoes and then back down,
Yep.
and
I've seen
it
this
rocks.
I've seen this a few times with like the superhero jump offs and landings where
Yeah,
they're in the harnesses and they just kind of jump up a couple feet and then get lowered down.
yeah.
And again, it looks good when you add in like the timing and the this and the that, but
Do you like
there's
superhero movies?
I do and I don't. Like I did when they didn't come out as frequently
Yeah,
when
we're
they were
kind of
more
fatigued.
exciting. Exactly.
Yeah, I haven't liked the last few that have come out, but let me tell you, go watch that new Guardians of the Galaxy, the third one.
Okay.
They do this scene where it's a hallway scene, and I always like hallway scenes in these movies where it's just like it looks like it's uncut, and they play a Beastie Boys song, and
Hmm.
it's like a 3 minute fight scene where they're just flipping around, and just it's just the most amazing thing I've seen in a comic book movie in like the last 5 years.
I do really like some of the Marvel movies. I think the ones,
Yeah,
in my personal opinion, the ones that are done with like what you're describing, that kind of sense of fun and like,
yeah,
hey, it can't take it too seriously. These were based on comics, man.
yeah. They haven't been fun for a while. Like I think the last one I really enjoyed was maybe like Endgame, like that Avengers movie. I mean, that's been a while back.
Do you watch the animated Harley Quinn TV show?
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
the most fun comic related
Yeah.
media, in my
That is
personal
pretty
opinion.
that is pretty funny. I tried to watch that with my 10-year-old. Yeah, I didn't know. And nobody told me
Right.
what kind of
And
show it would be. Yeah.
14 seconds in, listen up,
Yeah. I was like,
motherfuckers.
we're gonna pause this and then I'm gonna come back to it later.
Later. Yeah, I can definitely see. I would totally have made that mistake. Been like, hey, Sarah, my friend's kid. Hey, Sarah, I'm babysitting you this evening. Want to watch this new comic book TV show? 30 seconds later. Guess what? We're never watching together again. I really like that one. And the reason I
Yeah,
do
it's
is
good.
besides being incredibly violent, it's extremely fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And
I didn't I haven't really liked DC that much, but
same.
the last Suicide Squad movie, like ever since like James Gunn has got involved
Hmm.
in this, that was one of the most fun movies I've ever seen.
It was pretty good. I do like oh my gosh, Margot Robbie her monologue
Yeah.
basically saying, "Next time I fall in love with a toxic man, I do the reasonable thing and kill him." Like, okay.
Yeah.
I do have to say, as much as I love Margot Robbie, especially as Barbie, thank you for making that exist. I love you forever, Margot Robbie. Kelly Coco as Harley is my favorite. I like that
I've not
version.
seen that.
She's the one who voices animated Harley Quinn, the one by HBO.
Is she really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's her.
Wow.
She's
I
come a
did
far
not
way
know
from
that.
irritating the hell out of me during Big Bang Theory. I hate that show. I'm sorry to anybody who's listening. My dad, I love my dad. He's genuinely one of the smartest people I have ever met in my life, but he likes the dumbest TV. I do, I don't understand. He loves like CSI. He loves like Law and Order. What's the show I was just talking about? Big Bang Theory. It's like,
Yeah. We were talking about Law and Order today, and how I have never seen a single episode,
You don't
and
need to.
there's about 40,000 of them, I think.
Oh my God, so many.
Yeah,
One of the
like
things he like,
it's
sorry,
been on the air since 1902.
it
Yeah,
it's been on forever, but speaking of being English majors, one of the things that, you do study when you study English is
Mhm.
plot mechanics. That's
Yeah,
that's something that you study. And his least favorite thing, my dad's least favorite thing, is how obvious the plot mechanics are to me. Because I will just call out something. I'll be in the room for 1 minute and just go, he did it.
yeah,
And he
yeah.
gets so
Oh,
mad
oh,
at
oh,
me.
oh. My wife, she hates to watch movies with me, just because I'll dissect every bit of it. And the most fun is like the Hallmark movies, like the Christmas ones.
Oh, I bet she
Oh,
absolutely cannot wait to sit down with you and one of and a
oh
bucket
man,
of popcorn.
I ruin those every
Yeah.
time. It's
I
almost like a game.
Does she like to watch all the ones that come out like every holiday season? Excuse me.
Oh yeah,
I
we we are huge. Okay, here's the thing. We when we bought our house, which was 15 years ago,
Mhm.
everybody bought us Christmas stuff, and everybody has bought
Sure.
us Christmas stuff since. So we are the couple who goes way out for Christmas. Like I have to kind of keep that separate because I'm trying to cultivate this, this horror author type thing. But no, the real me puts up 10 Christmas trees and
And
just
Christmas trees.
yeah, we 10 Christmas trees goes up in this house. Yeah. And it's stuff that people have bought us, for years. We just have so much Christmas.
I have a friend back in Maryland who is the biggest Christmas enthusiast I know, and all I'm going to say is she'd be so jealous of you. They finally own a house now, and I think that the notion that she is not the person that owns 10 Christmas trees might just
Yeah.
completely chap her.
That's the advantage to living here in the middle of nowhere is that you can buy a house for less than a car and 2,200 square feet.
So this is the first year that I will have been living with cats for the holiday
Uh
season. My
huh.
family and I are dog people. My boyfriend has cats, and I'm now concerned that anything I put up decoration related is just going to be bait for a cat to take down.
Yeah, you're gonna have that. We have three cats. We have three
Okay.
cats. Two of them, two of them have been here, almost as long as we've had the house. They don't bat an eye at any of it. I rescued a kitten over the summer this year that was going to die in the rain because it
Oh,
didn't know how to get out of the bad weather. So I brought it in, warmed it up, fed it. And now it lives here.
oh.
It's gonna be a problem when the trees start going up.
Yeah, kitten, I can see.
Yeah. Um, I don't really have any advice about that. You just have to deal. You have to deal with it.
Great.
Pick your battles. If it pulls off a cheap ornament, let it have it.
Let it have it. Just let it have the
Yeah.
cheap ornament.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing though. I don't have a lot of ornaments.
Mhm.
I have ornaments I like, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to come with the crux of the issue here is that they're all ornaments that I like. I only have about 6 of them. That's
Yeah.
going to be an issue. I will also say that I don't know how old Shadow is. The older cat is like a couple years old, so he's probably not going to be an issue. I'm worried about the baby cat.
Yeah.
Baby cat might be a little more curious. She's not actually a baby, but like under 2, still kitten energy.
Well, the good thing is if it's light, it won't pull your tree down.
She's a couple
If
pounds.
And I will tell you, if you put your tree in the corner, we anchor ours. We use like
Mm,
fishing wire and anchor it to something,
that's smart.
so they can't pull it down because you can fix just about anything, but once they knock it over, oh, that's going to be a hassle.
Yeah, I have dogs, and both of our dogs were adopted as
Mhm.
adults, so I've never even had to deal with that puppy stage, which is kind of nice.
Yeah,
So I've never had to think
yeah,
about animal proofing my life.
yeah. It's gonna be a challenge the first year anyway. You'll
I think
you'll be
so.
old school at it next year.
long as she doesn't knock down the Lego Titanic, I feel as though I'm not going to be
You have the
super.
Lodo Titanic?
I do. It's not in my house
Oh,
yet. It's at my parents' place where I was living. I just haven't
I'm
managed
so
to bring it
jealous.
over.
I'm
It
so
is pretty
jealous.
nice.
I've asked for a Lego Rivendell for Christmas.
Ooh, that set looks so neat.
Yeah, my son is big into Lego. It's ridiculous the Legos that are just one room over from me. It's embarrassing the amount of Legos.
I want the Death Star set.
Oh yeah. And that's the good thing about all of the, even though I might not like all of these shows that are coming out for like Star Wars, they come out with a whole line of Legos each time.
Mm-hmm. So many more cool toys.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like all the people who make lightsabers now, so you can get them without having to
Uh,
spend hundreds of dollars. It's nice.
yeah. Yeah. Because, oh, yeah, back in the day, those things were,
Yeah, I have one that's like, I think it was like 150. It's pretty nice. And I have a cheap one that I got for, I don't know, 40, $50 on Amazon. That
wow.
one's way lighter. And I use that one to learn sort of, spin tricks because it's pretty light, but they're both pretty cool. And I've unfortunately thrown them both a handful of times because I'm not
Is
very good at spinning.
is there a video of this?
Yes, there is actually. I think if you go, there's one video on the Titanic Talk Line TikTok, and I think it is me and this lightsaber, and I think I put Cantina music over it.
That's awesome.
Hey,
I
okay, I'm
will
gonna Google
I
this.
will find
Okay.
that. I will find that as soon as we are done.
Titanic Talk Line TikTok. Oh, good. Nope. It's around somewhere. I did post it, but I don't use TikTok that often. It's there somewhere.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
I'll look for it.
Either that or it's
I'll
on
find
Facebook. I have no idea.
it.
Oh well. What is you said that you've already moved one book over from this one.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now? Anything nautical related, or have you moved away from the sea?
No, I've moved away from that. The next book is actually going to be a sequel to Under Bethel.
Okay.
I have more requests for that because I leave a pretty good twist at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no plans of making another book, but people have, they really asked me to do it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy the character in Under Bethel a whole lot. She's so much fun to write.
Mm-hmm.
So this next one, it's going to be called Under Serpent Island, which takes place in the Under Snake Island. It's in Brazil, off the coast of Brazil. It's a real life island. It's full of these. There's a kind of snake there called the golden lance head. It's only found there in the whole world, and that's kind of the basis for this next story. It's going to be
Nice.
horror also, and what I did with spiders in Under Bethel, I'm going to try to do with snakes in Under Serpent Island because I really like claustrophobia and just scenes of people having to crawl through really tight spaces with spiders all over the place. Yep.
I think I'm going to be reading these next ones.
uh,
I'm not a spider. I'm not a spider
that's the
person.
and that's the comment I get mostly on that ad is that, oh, it looks really good, but I can't do spiders.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Come back to me when you're doing something unrelated. Come back to me when the vampires re-enter the window. Then we'll start up with my attention again.
I will do that.
Until then, thank you so much for coming on. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Anyone out there who's looking for something this October, we're coming up on Halloweenish season. Definitely check out Hubert. What's your book called again?
It's called Blood and Salt,
Blood and
and
Salt.
you can get it on Amazon. You can get the audiobook on Audible. You can either find it there or come to my website, which is hubertlmullins.com. All formats. So check it out.
Please do. Until next time, thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you then. Bye.